There is a hush that lives beyond the world of roads and coin, of tavern songs and muddy boots, a hush born not of fear or secrecy, but of stillness, a silence that is not empty, but filled with the breath of time itself. To find it, one must pass beyond the village, across fields brushed with fog, where the crow of the cock echoes into nothing. One must leave behind the sound of shouting merchants, barking dogs, and laughter spilling from inns. Instead, follow the tolling of a distant bell. You may not see the monastery at first. Its walls do not rise like castles or cathedrals. It sits low and quiet, as if crouched in prayer. Stone buildings clad in moss, grey walls weathered by centuries of rain. Ivy drapes the corners like softened lace. Smoke curls from a chimney, faint and thin, more suggestion than signal. A wooden gate marks the edge of the world you knew. Beyond it the cloister that let us step quietly inside. The sound changes as you enter, a gentle dimming, like wool wrapped around the ears. The wind still moves the trees outside, but here it is gentled by the stone. No footsteps hurry, no shouts call out. Even the birds sing softer, as if in deference to the quiet held within these walls. The cloister is not a single space, but a square for covered walkways surrounding a small central garden. Stone arcades curve over each corridor, their pillars worn smooth by fingers and time. You walk beneath them and feel the cool of the flagstones underfoot. Hear the hollow echo of your own breath. In the center is a simple garden. No roses or ornamental shrubs, only herbs and low-growing plants used for healing or flavor. Thyme, sage, rue, lavender, angelica, a few bees hum without urgency. A stone well sits off to one side, collecting the night's dew and the morning's light. This space is not for beauty in the worldly sense, but for contemplation. It is a garden tended not for the eyes, but for the soul. There is no ornament in the cloister, no gilding, no stained glass, only the honest texture of stone and wood, clay and wax, rough linen and hand-planed beams. The beauty here lies in proportion, in the rhythm of arches, the balance of columns, the way light filters through the slits in the walls at sunrise. Arch each doorway that branches from the cloister leads to a different room, the refectory for meals, the chapter house for daily readings, the dormitory above, the calefactory where warmth is shared, and of course, the church. But before we explore those, we must understand what the cloister means. It is not just an architectural feature, it is the very heart of the monastic rhythm. It is where the monks move between spaces in silence, where they meditate as they walk, where they copy scripture in the still hours, and where they gather for processions, feet brushing stone in careful, deliberate steps. The cloister is where the world is both held at bay and silently remembered. It is the skin between the body of the monastery and the wind beyond. It is here that a novice, newly cloaked in wool and humility, will sit with bowed head, unsure if he hears God or only his own heartbeat. Here that an elder monk, 40 winters in service, will pause and look up at a bird crossing the open square and remember something of childhood. Long buried but never gone, let us pause now by the fountain in the corner. It is not elaborate, merely a spout shaped like a lion, worn smooth, trickling water into a shallow basin. A bowl of cold reflection. The monks come here to wash before entering the refectory. Their hands move slowly, intentionally. Water falls with a rhythm older than memory. This is a place not just of prayer, but of order. Every hour is spoken for. Every task has its place. Even rest is given structure. This is not rigidity for the sake of power. It is the creation of a holy rhythm. For in a world where plague and famine and war can arrive overnight, where kings fall and markets fail, the monastic life offers the comfort of repetition, of knowing that at prime the psalms will be sung, that at sext bread will be broken, that at Compline the last candle will be lit. And this order begins always here. In the cloister. Look closely now at the walls. Carved into the stone, almost imperceptibly, are markings, not grand carvings, but initials, crosses, a single word, aura, pray. These were left by generations of hands, some perhaps in moments of devotion, others in moments of weakness or loneliness. Each one remains a quiet confession etched in limestone. A bell tolls. The sound is full, low, resonant. It is not urgent, but firm. It does not call you to hurry, but to shift, to move inward. Matins will begin soon. Monks begin to appear now, not in clusters, but one by one, emerging from archways and shadows. Their robes are coarse, the color of unbleached wool. Most wear no expression, or if they do, it is one of quiet inwardness, a gaze softened by habit. Their feet do not slap the ground, they glide, as if walking not upon earth, but within a prayer. One monk pauses near the garden to pluck a weed. Another nods silently as he passes a younger brother. None speak, yet everything here feels full, as if silence itself were a kind of song being sung in a language older than Latin. Let us walk one more time around the cloisters square. Note how each view changes as the light changes. How the garden seems closer in one corner, more distant in another. How the floor is worn most at the thresholds, where passing feet have smoothed the stone. How the ceiling arches feel higher. As the mind quiets, the cloister is the threshold between the self and the sacred. To enter it is to step outside of time, or perhaps to enter time more deeply. For here each moment is noticed, each footfall matters. Each breath belongs to the life of the whole. The day is about to begin, not with the clatter of doors or the shout of command, but with the soft opening of a wooden door, the shuffling of sandals on stone, the gathering of men who have sworn to live not for themselves, but for something higher, something quieter, something eternal. And so we turn now toward the chapel. The first psalms await, but the cloister remains behind us still, still as stone, waiting, watching, holding the shape of silence like a bowl holds water. You will pass through it many times in the day ahead, but you will never pass through it the same way twice. The day does not begin with the sun. It begins in darkness, long before the first light slips over the horizon, before even the birds have found their song. The monastery stirs, but it does not awaken all at once. Rather, it breathes a slow, sacred breath from the depth of night, as if drawn up from the very heart of stillness. This is the hour of Matins, the first of the canonical hours. It is a time set apart, not morning, not truly night, but something in between, a moment that exists outside the reach of ordinary time. The world is asleep, and yet Within these cloistered walls, the spirit is summoned to wakefulness. The bell tolls once, low and deep, a sound more felt than heard. It travels through the dormitory corridors, echoing along timber beams and cold stone. No shouting, no rushing. The monks rise as if in response to something internal, a rhythm learned through years of practice, carved into the body as surely as prayer is carved into the tongue. Woolen robes are drawn on in silence. Sandals are fastened by memory. The cold presses in around them, not cruelly, but as a presence, the kind that makes the breath visible and the fingers ache just enough to remember the body is still alive. Candles are lit by hand. Their flames flicker quietly, catching the edge of a wooden bed frame, the curve of a bowl, the polished spine of a prayer book. The air smells of wax and wool, and faintly of sleep. No one speaks. Voices are for the psalms. They move as shadows, descending narrow stone steps that spiral downward like a slow thought. Each monk's silhouette folds into the next, robes brushing against the walls worn smooth by generations of early risings. The passage leads them into the church, the heart of the monastery, the anchor of their day and night alike. The chapel is not grand. This is no cathedral for kings or pilgrims. It is built in humility of heavy stone and hand-hewn timber, arched beams above and flagstones below. The windows are narrow, letting in no light at this hour. Only the faintest silver from the stars touches the tops of the walls, and in this stillness the monks gather. They stand in rows, facing east, each man with his breviary, his voice ready, though not yet raised. The prior enters last, bowing before the altar. Then a silence, heavy, holy, unbroken, until, without signal, the chant begins. No instruments accompany it, only the human voice, a voice not meant to perform, but to lift. One monk begins, Domini, labia mea. Aperies, O Lord, open my lips. The response comes, not in competition, but in harmony. Etus meam anuntiabit, lodum tuum, and my mouth shall proclaim your praise. So begins the cycle of psalms. In the darkness, these words carry weight. Not just words, but centuries of memory. The same verses spoken by monks 100 years ago, the same melodies, unchanged, passed down like sacred stones in a river of time. The chant flows slowly. There is no rush, each syllable held like a candle between the lips. In the silence between phrases, you can hear the cold, the way it hushes through the cracks in the stone. You can hear the settling of wood, the shift of breath, the echo of a sandal adjusting. You do not notice the passage of time here. There is no clock, only the voice and the silence. Psalms follow psalms. Some are sung in full, others are split. By readings, passages from Scripture, lives of saints, wisdom of the Church Fathers. The words are not explained. They are offered, left to settle in the soul like coals in ash. The candles burn low, wax gathers at their bases, pooling slowly. Like time itself, melting, an hour may pass, perhaps more. Eventually, the final psalm ends. The last line lingers, in manus tuus Domini commendo spiritum meum. Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. There is no applause, no conclusion, only stillness. Then, quietly, the monks turn and depart the chapel just as they came, without fanfare, without speech. Their bodies move as if connected, not by rope or ritual, but by silence itself. Some return to their dormitory for a brief rest before Lord's. Others remain in the church, heads bowed, lips moving in whispered contemplation. A few walk the cloister, pacing slowly, the rhythm of their steps echoing like a heartbeat across stone. This hour is not meant to inspire action. It is meant to deepen awareness, to remind the monk that even in the darkest hour, prayer continues, that even when the world is silent, the soul must speak, that the night, with all its uncertainty, belongs also to God. Matins is the gateway through which the monk re-enters the sacred rhythm of the day, not with the clang of sunrise or the chaos of chores, but with darkness, with stillness, with the calm of voices united in praise, even when the body still longs for sleep. This is not easy. Monks, too, grow weary. They feel the cold, they drift into drowsiness. Some fight the temptation to remain in bed, the warm wool of sleep beckoning. But they rise again and again, because they know that discipline is a form of love. Love for the sacred, love for the community, love for the rhythm that holds their fragile human lives together. And so the hour of Matins closes. The church stands in quiet again. The candles, burned low, will be replaced. The air will warm with breath once more. But for now, the chapel sleeps. Outside, the stars remain. A few clouds drift past the moon, casting slow-moving shadows over the roof tiles. Somewhere, a fox stirs in the woods. The rest of the world is still at rest, but within these walls, something eternal has been spoken, something whispered into the dark, and in the silence that follows, it lingers waiting. The first light does not begin in the sky, but in the stones it emerges almost imperceptibly. A cool shimmer upon the eastern walls of the cloister, pale as breath, silent as dust. The stars are not gone yet. The moon still lingers like a faded coin in a pocket of the heavens. But something has shifted. The night has loosened its grip, and in the quiet bones of the monastery, morning begins to stir. There is no trumpet, no rooster crowing to declare this hour, only the slow brightening of form, shadows growing shorter, corners sharpening, and the faint gleam of dew settling across every surface like glass-blown prayer. This is the hour of Lord's, the morning praise. If Matins is the whisper in the darkness, Lord's is the breath that follows, the inhalation of day, the first exhale of purpose. It is the hour where sleep has passed, but silence remains, a liminal space, not rushed, not slow, only steady. The monks rise again. For some, there has been a short rest since Matins. Others have remained in contemplation, moving quietly through the cloister or kneeling beneath the narrow windows of the chapel. There is no alarm, no single moment of waking. The monastery does not sprint toward morning. It receives it. Robes are gathered once more. Faces are washed in cold water from a stone basin. There is no mirror, no need for vanity here. Only the ritual of waking the body alongside the spirit. The first birds begin their song beyond the walls. It is not loud nor joyous, but it is constant, a layering of whistles and calls like embroidery on the hem of silence. They do not know they sing for God, but their song is no less sacred for its unawareness. The bell tolls, a softer sound than Matins, not because the bell has changed, but because the world has, where before it echoed across frozen earth, now it lands on morning air, already touched with warmth. The sound flows through the corridors like smoke, and the monks follow its path toward the chapel. Once again they gather, but this time something is different. Light where there was darkness. There is now the beginning of gold. It spills through the east-facing windows, not yet fierce, not yet full, but tender. A light that does not demand, only reveals. It catches in the folds of robes, dances along the edges of stone, rests gently on the floor like a cat seeking. Warmth, candles still burn, but they are no longer the only fire. The psalmody begins once more. The chant of Lords is not jubilant in the way one might expect a modern hymn to be. There is no crescendo, no climactic resolution. Instead, it is steady, rooted, a quiet declaration that the day belongs to something greater than the self. Deus in agitorium meum intend. O God, come to my assistance. Domini ad adjuvandum me festina, O Lord, make haste to help me. The voices are not tired, though the body may be. They are trained, practiced, but they do not perform. These are not songs for others. These are offerings, daily repeated. Renewed, the psalms chosen for lauds are drawn from the tradition of morning texts that speak of light after darkness, of mercy renewed each dawn, of the rising sun as witness to God's fidelity. They do not pretend the world is easy, but they declare it sacred nonetheless. Between chants there is silence, no homily, no discussion, only the return to stillness, and in that stillness the light grows. Outside, the mist in the garden begins to lift. The leaves of the herbs still wear droplets like glass beads. Bees begin their slow, deliberate orbit around the lavender. In the distance, a farmer leads an ox through a field. He is unaware that prayers are being sung behind stone walls, but he too, in his labor, participates in the sanctity of this morning. Back inside the chapel, the last antiphon fades. The final blessing is whispered, and the monks bow their heads. It is not the end of prayer, for the monastic day is saturated with it, but it is the closing of this first full turning toward the day. Lauds is not preparation, it is declaration. The world has been made again, and it has been received in reverence. They do not cheer the sunrise, they welcome it as they file out of the chapel. The light follows them, seeping into their cells, gilding the edges of the refectory, awakening. Even the corners of the library where dust and silence sleep beside the books. The cloister, too, has changed. Where once it was grey and shadowed, it now glows. The arches catch the light like old bone. The garden looks less like a monument and more like a friend. The cold has retreated, not entirely, but enough that the stone beneath their feet no longer bites. Breakfast will come soon. Work will begin, but this moment is not yet for action. It is for recognition, to see the world again, as if for the first time, and to understand that it continues not by chance, but by grace. Let us walk the cloister once more, but now, with the sun rising behind us, note how everything appears warmer. The wood of the benches has texture. The stone shows veins. The well reflects not stars, but sky. Even the fountain sings more clearly, its trickles sharpened by the acoustics of morning. One monk pauses to turn his face toward the light. He does not smile, nor does he weep. He simply breathes, and in that breath the entirety of Lords finds its echo dot. It is not the intensity of feeling that marks this moment, but its simplicity. The world is here, the day has begun, and in this beginning there is praise. It is late morning now. The sun has lifted fully above the eastern hills, spilling its light into every recess of the monastery. The cloisters' stone arcades are no longer shrouded in shadow, and the bees in the herb garden have become confident in their work. But here, just off the cloister's western side, lies a room not ruled by the sky, nor by haste. This is the Scriptorium. If the chapel is where the monks speak to God, then the scriptorium is where they listen, not in voice, but in ink. Would not notice this room from the outside. There is no grand threshold, no decoration, just a thick wooden door, heavy with the scent of wax and dust. But within there is a quiet like no other, a purposeful silence, not the absence of sound, but the presence of concentration. The air is still and faintly warm, thick with the smell of vellum, lamp oil, and iron gall ink. It is a room of order, long wooden tables, evenly spaced, each furnished with the same humble tools, a sharpened quill, a knife for trimming it, an inkwell, a cloth for blotting, and a stand for the page. Some desks have candles or small glass windows above them, allowing filtered daylight to fall exactly where the hand works. Along the walls sit shelves of scrolls and codices. Stacked side by side, they are not displayed as treasures, but stored as necessities, containers of thought, of law, of revelation. Some are bound in calfskin, some wrapped in linen. Others remain as simple sheaves, waiting to be assembled like unfinished prayers. At one of these desks sits a monk. He is not old, though his face bears the fatigue of concentration. His eyes move not side to side, but downward, always downward, following the shape of each letter as he draws it. His lips move silently, tracing the words as he writes them, not reading for understanding, but for precision. He does not compose, he copies, and this, too, is devotion. The page before him is vellum, treated animal skin, scraped smooth, supple yet firm. It has taken weeks to prepare. The ink he uses is dark as wine, made from oak galls and iron salts, and it bites slightly into the parchment, leaving a mark that will not fade. The letters he forms are not hurried strokes. They are small architectures. Each A has a roof, each G a tail, each S curves like a vine. Margins are measured by string, line height determined by compass. Mistakes are rare, not because the monk is flawless, but because the act is. Sacred dot, to make an error here is not merely to mar a page, it is to disrespect the labor, the prayer, the centuries of tradition carried in each stroke. So he pauses often, he breathes, he adjusts his grip, he mutters the next line aloud before daring to set it down. In this, the scriptorium resembles the chapel: breath, silence, repetition. Elsewhere, in the room, other monks labor. One grinds pigment to prepare red ochre for rubrication, the small red initials that begin each section. Another sharpens a quill over a clay pot, flicking away the discarded nibs like the sheared curls of wool. A third monk is illuminating, adding gold leaf to the capital of a psalm, careful to lay it flat with his breath held. The gold is not ornamental. It is light. It is a glimmer that says, what begins here is holy. Hours pass unnoticed here. The day outside continues. Sun shifting, birds calling, distant bells ringing to mark terce or sext, but within these walls time does not move in hours. It moves in sentences, in pages, in completed psalters and gospels, in copies made not for profit but for preservation. The monks write not for themselves, nor for fame. Most will never see the people who read their work. Many do not even sign their name. A simple note in Latin may appear at the end of a manuscript. Pray for the monk who wrote this. That is all. And so the room is filled with quiet movements, quill scratching vellum, breath drawn, then held. The creak of a stool as a monk shifts his weight, the soft closing of a codex, a whispered correction. There is no conversation here, only discipline. And in that discipline, a strange peace. It is not the peace of ease or luxury, but of purpose to spend an hour or a lifetime copying the word, the law, the lives of saints. It is not a waste, it is a calling. In this small act, the monk partakes in the endless chain of human knowledge, preserving wisdom against the creeping rot of time and fire and forgetting. He does not think of the modern reader or the historian centuries hence. He thinks only of the line before him, of the letter now forming, of the God who spoke these words first. Eventually, his eyes grow tired. He closes his manuscript carefully, places a scrap of parchment between the leaves to protect the drying ink, and covers the codex with a square of cloth. His fingers ache, his knees are stiff, but his soul is still. Outside the scriptorium, life continues. Soon it will be time to eat. But here, inside this quiet room, thought has been made visible. The word has become ink, and the ink, in turn, becomes memory. Before he leaves, the monk turns once more to the page. He does not admire it, he does not boast. He only touches the margin lightly with 2 fingers. A benediction, a thanks. Then he rises, and the scriptorium once again becomes still. By now, the sun has risen to its highest point. Its light no longer slants or meanders. It falls straight and bright across the courtyard, warming the stones of the cloister, and banishing the last shivers of morning from the sleeves of robes. A hush still lingers in the monastery, but it is a hush filled with the subtle bustle of motion, a rustle of tunics, the soft thud of wooden tools, the occasional creak of a wheelbarrow moving across packed earth. This is the hour of labor. The rule of Saint Benedict, followed by nearly all Western monastic communities since the 6th century, is very clear on this point. Idleness is the enemy of the soul. Monks are not called merely to prayer, but to work, to cultivate the land, to wash and mend, to copy and clean, to build and tend. It is through this balance of ora et labora, prayer and work, that the monk becomes whole. And so, after sext, the brief midday office, the brothers disperse into their daily tasks. Like roots fanning outward from a central tree, some move toward the garden. It is not a grand garden, no ornamental hedges, no exotic flowers, no peacocks strutting through trimmed topiary. This is a working garden, carefully tended, as vital to the monastery's life as the chapel or the refectory. Rows of vegetables line the plot's cabbage, leeks, carrots, onions, turnips. Between them grow herbs, rosemary for digestion, sage for sore throats, comfrey for bruises, mint for the breath. The soil is dark and damp, worked by hands that know its moods and seasons. A monk kneels at the edge of a raised bed. He carries a small woven basket and a wooden trowel. Slowly, rhythmically, he weeds the row, placing unwanted shoots into the basket, careful not to disturb the roots of what must remain. His back is bent, his hands cracked from sun and soil. But there is no grumbling, no rush. This, too, is prayer. Another monk tends the fruit trees that grow along the outer wall, gnarled pear and apple, their branches now heavy with green buds. He trims dead twigs with a blade passed down from monk to monk. It is a quiet art to prune what must be cut, so that what must grow can grow. Others carry water in wooden buckets, drawn from the well, sloshing gently with each step. The water is cool and heavy. Its path down the monk's arms leaves dark marks on his robe, but he does not mind. Water is life. The garden drinks, the earth softens. The roots, unseen and faithful, stir awake. Near the apothecary shed, a monk grinds dried chamomile and fennel into powder. He keeps a mortar and pestle. Steady with both hands, the slow grinding sound, a kind of song. These herbs will later be made into poultices, teas, or salves, simple remedies for headaches, joint pain, restlessness. Dot in one corner of the courtyard, linen hangs from wooden racks. It flutters softly in the sun, robes and towels and table. Cloths, all cleaned earlier in the day with ash soap and river water. A monk approaches and checks their dryness, then carefully folds the ones already crisp from the breeze. Each task, no matter how mundane, is done with care, not because the monks are obsessed with perfection, but because they believe the smallest acts can be sanctified, that to weed a row of onions with reverence is to honor the one who made the onion, that to fold a robe slowly is to praise the body it will warm. Their labor is not rushed. There is no overseer shouting orders, no quotas, no lists. Each monk knows what must be done, and does it not for reward, but for rhythm. The rhythm of the monastery depends not only on bells and prayers, but on sweat and patience, on the feel of a hoe against the palm, the hum of bees in the rosemary, the thud of a boot on packed earth. Inside the workshop, other monks tend to different labors. One sharpens tools with a whetstone. The rasping sound fills the warm air. Another repairs a stool, hammering a wooden peg into its leg with gentle taps. Someone else cuts kindling for the calefactory, thin splinters from a larger log, each one destined to make warmth where it is most needed. Everything has its place. Every object is reused, repaired, repurposed. Waste is not simply frowned upon. It is unthinkable. Every leaf of lettuce not eaten is composted. Every scrap of wool saved. Even candle stubs are melted and reformed. The monks work in near silence. When they must speak, it is in whispers, often in Latin, but most communication happens through gesture, a nod toward a basket, a glance toward a wheelbarrow. The hands do the talking, and often the answering. At the edge of the garden, the bell sounds again. It is time to pause, not For a feast, the monastic meal is still simple, still hours away, but a moment of rest is permitted. The monks gather near the fountain. A jug of cool water is passed from hand to hand. A few sit beneath a tree. One prays with eyes open, watching the breeze stir the long stalks of leeks. This stillness, too, is sacred, and in this space it is possible to understand how the body and the spirit are not so separate, that the sweat on a monk's brow is not, apart from the psalm on his lips, that the turning of compost, the sowing of seeds, the pruning of vine, all are movements within a single prayer. Eventually, the tools are returned to their places, the buckets emptied, the baskets filled with herbs or greens, the folded linens brought indoors. No one cheers, no one boasts, but there is a satisfaction, one made not of pride, but of quiet completion. The earth is fed, the monastery breathes, and once again time moves forward, not in leaps, but in gentle steps, as it always has, by now. The sun hangs heavy in the sky. Its gold is thick and unmoving, as if time itself has slowed beneath the weight of heat and labor. The garden has fallen into a hush. Bees still hover, but even the birds seem less certain in their songs. The monastery breathes in, preparing for stillness again. The bell tolls once more. Its tone is neither urgent nor ceremonial, only consistent, like the breath of the day. It calls not to prayer, but to sustenance. This is the hour of the midday meal. In the Benedictine rhythm, it is a sacred pause, not a feast, not a reward, simply a necessary, structured moment of nourishment. In silence, the monks begin to gather in the refectory. It is a long, narrow hall with whitewashed walls and a timber ceiling arching gently above. A simple crucifix hangs at one end. Long wooden tables run the length of the room, paired with benches rubbed smooth by generations of wear. There are no tapestries, no elaborati frescoes. The room is intentionally bare, for this is not a space of distraction, it is a space of focus. The only ornament is found in discipline. Each monk enters with hands washed and sleeves rolled back slightly to avoid food stains. Their robes are plain, their sandals silent against the flagstones. No one speaks, no one gestures grandly. Conversation is forbidden here, except for the voice of the reader. Each monk bows slightly to the crucifix upon entering, then takes his place at the table. Always the same seat, always the same neighbor. Seating is fixed according to seniority, not as a mark of rank, but to reduce choice, to erase ego, to simplify. The air smells faintly of bread, garlic, lentils, and a trace of wood smoke. At the front of the hall stands a raised lectern. Upon it rests a book, often a hagiography, a moral treatise, or the writings of a church father. One monk has been chosen for the day to serve as the reader. His voice will accompany the meal. His task is not to entertain, but to anchor. The prior enters last. He nods once. The monks sit. A short prayer is whispered, a grace offered in Latin, hands folded, heads bowed. The tone is not hurried. Every word is measured. Then the meal begins. Bowls are passed without sound. Wooden spoons click gently against the rim. The fare is plain. Lentil stew, baked bread, perhaps a piece of root vegetable, and in some seasons cheese or fruit from the orchard. Once or twice a week there may be fish. Meat is rare and only allowed on certain days or for the infirm. There is no wine, only water or weak beer, brewed in the monastery's cellar. The mugs are earthenware, the bowls unglazed, the cutlery wooden dot. No one takes more than they need. Moderation is a rule as firm as prayer. To eat too much, to eat too quickly, to show preference, these are small cracks in the structure of humility. Even desire, when it clings too tightly to food, is something to be noticed, resisted, softened as the meal begins. The reader speaks. His voice is steady, soft but clear. He does not pause to accommodate the clatter of cutlery, for there is none. The monks eat slowly, carefully, their attention split between spoon and syllable. The words they hear are absorbed not in discussion but in digestion. Today the reading may be from the life of St. Anthony, tomorrow from the Rule, next week from the letters of Augustine. These texts are chosen not for novelty, but for repetition, that the mind might absorb slowly over years what it cannot in moments. They enter the soul the way bread enters the body, not as a bolt of energy, but as quiet sustenance. There are no questions asked, no commentary given. The words are heard and then allowed to settle. The reader does not eat during the reading. His meal will come later, taken alone in the kitchen or after the others depart. This, too, is sacrifice, a small offering of service to the community. Occasionally there is a pause in the reading. A page must be turned, a candle trimmed, a moment of silence. These intervals are not awkward. They are allowed, they breathe. They give the mind space to rest, to absorb the cadence of the words and the rhythm of the spoon. All things here have rhythm. The lifting of the spoon, the chewing, the swallow, the phrase in the reading, the echo of it in the heart. Meals last no more than half an hour, but within that time is a profound intimacy, not between the monks and one another, but between each monk and his own discipline. Because hunger, too, is a teacher. It reminds the body of its needs. It invites awareness. It asks for restraint. To eat without pleasure is not the goal, nor is it to eat with guilt. It is to eat with clarity, with intent, with a recognition that even the act of chewing is part of the day's devotion. And when the bowls are emptied and the reading complete, a final prayer is whispered. Gratias agamus, Domino Dio nostro. Let us give thanks to the Lord our God. The monks rise in unison. No one lingers. The benches slide quietly back. The bowls are collected. A few monks will remain behind to clean, rinse, dry, and return everything to its place. The others exit the refectory in silence, returning once more to the cloister, where the air is now thick with late afternoon heat. A dove coos lazily in the eaves. Shadows stretch. Somewhere a bell waits. And in the belly of each monk, not overfilled, not neglected, sits a quiet meal, digested slowly, accompanied by the voice of a saint, the rhythm of discipline, the simplicity of bread and prayer. The sun has begun to fall. Its angle shifts, becoming longer, more poetic. Shadows now stretch from the arches of the cloister-like arms, yearning across stones. The air has cooled slightly, and the warmth once soaked into the monastery's thick walls begins to slip away, like incense smoke at the end of a mass. This is the hour of Vespers. If Lauds is the monastery's greeting to the day, Vespers is its gentle farewell, a liturgical exhale, not dramatic, not final, but meditative, a letting go, a twilight offering. Inside the cloister, the mood has softened. The busy industry of labor has slowed, and the deep, full quiet has returned. It is not the silence of emptiness, but of contentment. Tasks completed, meals shared, hours prayed. The day has lived its course. Now it begins to bow. The bell sounds again, not loudly, not sharply, but with a round, mellow tone. It echoes off the cloister walls with a kind of kindness, like a gentle voice, calling you home in the soft light of evening. The monks gather for the second time. In the chapel that day, robes rustling softly, shadows rippling along the floor like ink spreading across parchment. The last rays of sunlight slide through the high windows, igniting fragments of colored glass, blue of Mary's robe, red of martyr's blood, gold of saintly halos. The walls come alive briefly for a moment. Even the stones seem to pray. Candles are lit again, though they now compete with the golden light still entering from the west. The prior enters, a small bow, then all stand. The air smells faintly of wax and lavender, perhaps from the apothecary's bundle burned earlier to cleanse. The room, in a place where time feels circular, not linear, Vespers does not signal an end, but a turning from the world of work and words back to silence, back to night, back to the self. The chant begins. It is slow, but luminous. There is no urgency. In these tones, Vespers is a deliberate act. Its tempo reflects the sun's descent, steady, golden, inevitable. The first antiphon rises softly, a single voice leading, the rest following in a low harmonic murmur that vibrates faintly in the chest. The words are psalms of gratitude, reflection, mercy. Let my prayer be set forth before thee as incense, and the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Each word is shaped with care, not just as sound, but as substance. These are not songs to be heard, they are prayers to be entered, inhabited like a room. Between verses, a pause, not dead air, but a breath. The sacred stillness in which the heart has space to echo the words it cannot yet speak. Outside the chapel, the sky has already begun to shift. The deep blue of approaching dusk settles over the garden, and the birds grow quiet. The sun brushes the tops of the trees beyond the walls in a last act of farewell. Inside, the monks remain standing, or seated in stillness, each with his breviary in hand, following the Latin verses with eyes trained not only on the page, but on the soul. The prayers are communal, yes, but they are also private. Each monk brings the weight of his own thoughts, regrets, temptations, and triumphs to this hour. But none of it is spoken aloud. There is no confessional booth here, no dramatization of sorrow. Only psalms, sung in unity, that carry both joy and grief like vessels on a still sea. After the final psalm, a hymn is sung. Often it is Lucy's Creator Optimi, O blessed Creator of the light. A poem that praises the God who orders both the day and the night, who sets the sun in its place and the moon in hers, and guards us through the shadows of evening. As the voices rise, the chapel grows darker, not from lack of care, but from the world's turning. The sun now slips fully behind the hills, leaving only the candles and the fading stain of color on the walls. The shadows grow softer, like folds in a robe. Then comes the Magnificat, Mary's canticle, the prayer of humility, trust, reversal. My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour. It is sung not loudly, not weakly, but steadily, as though it has always been sung, as though it will continue long after this day has faded. The monks sing it in full heads, slightly bowed, their voices melding not into a choir, but into a single body of praise. The final prayer is offered. May the Lord bless us, protect us from all evil, and bring us to everlasting life. Then, in unison, a bow. The candles remain flickering as the monks file out slowly, their feet making the softest noise against the stones. They walk in pairs or alone, some pausing in the cloister to look at the sky. It is now a twilight world, blue, deepening into violet, stars beginning to emerge like scattered seeds across a dark field. The first cool breath of night glides through the corridors, catching the hems of robes, rustling the vines that creep along the cloister's outer wall. The monks do not speak, but they are not silent out of obligation. They are silent because there is nothing left to say. The day has spoken all it needs, and now it yields. Vespers does not close the monastery like a door. It softens it, folds it into the night like linen, washed and laid to rest. What remains now is stillness, perhaps a short walk, perhaps the lighting of a lantern, perhaps simply the gentle rhythm of breath as each monk finds his way back to his cell. But always, Vespers has done its work. It has taken the full weight of the day and offered it quietly, reverently back to the divine. Night has come, not the pale dusk of Vespers, but full darkness, deep, cool, and velvet thick. The birds have long since quieted. The garden, once buzzing with labor and light, now rests in stillness. The monastery's walls hold warmth in their stones, but the air that drifts through the cloister is touched with chill. This is the final hour, the last breath before the monastery surrenders to sleep. It is time for Compline, the night prayer. There is no rush to this moment, no bell that startles. Instead, the rhythm continues as it has all day, gentle, patient, inevitable. A monk lights a lantern. Its glow spills across the corridor floor, drawing gold from the flagstones and casting long shadows behind the arches. One by one, the monks begin to make their way to the chapel. Their footsteps are soft, their silhouettes barely distinguishable in the dim light. Robes flow like liquid ink in the lamplight. Unlike other hours, Compline is more intimate. There is something deeply human about it, not public like Vespers, not communal like the refectory, but something close to the skin. It is the hour of protection, of confession, of asking for mercy before darkness closes the eyes. The chapel is dim now. Only a handful of candles flicker near the altar, their light trembling against the carved wood and catching gently in the folds of the crucifix's shadow. The air smells faintly of wax, old incense, and the cold breath of stone. Outside, stars hang thick in the sky. The moon, pale and watchful, rests above the cloister like a benediction. The monks kneel. There is no reader now, no long passage, only this short final liturgy, brief, sacred, simple. The first words rise in a whisper. Converte-nos, Deus, salutaris noster. Convert us, O God, our salvation. The voices do not rise high. They stay close to the ground. Murmurs, harmonies that hum in the floorboards. The effect is not dramatic. It is protective, like being wrapped in a thick wool cloak, or hearing your name spoken softly in the dark. Then comes the examination of conscience. Not allowed, never allowed. Each monk reflects silently on his day. Where did I lose my temper? Where did pride take root? Did I perform my labor with care? Was my prayer sincere? Where did I fail to love? There is no punishment, no judgment, only truth and a promise. To try again when morning comes, a psalm follows. In te Domini speravi nan confender in eternum. In you, Lord, I have placed my hope. I shall never be put to shame. The words have been said for centuries. They do not age. They do not fade. Compline, more than any other hour, touches the monk's vulnerability. It speaks not to his strength, but to his weariness. It acknowledges what has not been done, what has been done poorly, what cannot be undone, and still it offers peace. Then the nunc dimittis, now, Lord, let your servant go in peace, according to your word, ... It is a prayer of departure, not from life, but from the day. A final release, ... For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all peoples. As the monks sing these lines, their voices soften even further. The flickering of the candles becomes the only motion in the chapel. The flame sways gently in rhythm with the chant, as if nodding along in assent. The final blessing is spoken. May the Almighty grant us a peaceful night and a perfect end. There is a pause, no one moves. Then slowly the prior makes the sign of the cross, and the monks, in turn, respond with the same gesture. No words are spoken as they rise. The candles are not extinguished. They are simply left to burn down, to watch over the chapel like silent sentinels. The monks walk the cloister once more, but now it is entirely dark. The moon offers soft light between the columns. The stars glitter like prayer beads strung across the heavens. There is no sound, not of voice, nor movement, nor wind. One by one they return to their cells, small rooms of stone and wood, containing only what is needed: a simple bed, a wooden cross, perhaps a single manuscript for reflection. The doors do not lock. They are not meant to keep the world out, only to invite stillness in. A few monks remain in silent prayer by their bedsides. Others have already lain down, eyes closed, breath slowing. The monastery is folding inward now, like hands pressed in prayer. Outside, an owl calls once. The trees stir gently. A candle gutters in the chapel, and above all this, above the stone and the wood, above the breath and the silence, lies a peace deeper than words. The peace of a day lived not perfectly, but faithfully. The peace of a rhythm held. The peace of knowing that when the sun rises again, the bell will ring, the prayer will begin, and the life of devotion will continue, not because it is novel, but because it is necessary. And for now, in this moment, that knowledge is enough. Compline is complete. The monastery sleeps. The monastery sleeps. Its walls, so busy with quiet motion during the day, now stand still beneath the stars. The cloister walks are empty. The refectory is dark. The chapel holds only the faint scent of wax and incense. Even the garden, which hours ago was alive with hands and bees and movement, now rests under a blanket of moonlight and dew. The rhythm of the day has concluded, but time has not stopped. It has simply ... shifted. Within these stone walls, time behaves differently than it does beyond. In the monastery, time is not measured by productivity or ambition, not by the urgency of news or the noise of clocks. It is not linear. It is not consumable. Here, time is sacred. It is ritual. It is return. Each hour of the monastic day, Matins, Lauds, Prime, Terce, Sext, Nun, Vespers, Compline, exists not just as a slot in a schedule, but as an invitation, a doorway, a chance to re-enter the eternal through the ordinary, to remember that prayer is not something that happens outside time, but within it. And so the monk lives not in opposition to time, but in harmony with it. He does not rush, he does not race, he does not worry over deadlines. For his only deadline is death, and even that, to him, is not an end, but another doorway, another hour in the great divine office of existence. In the dark hours after Compline, while most of the monastery sleeps, perhaps 1 or 2 monks remain awake in vigil, not out of insomnia or anxiety, but out of devotion, a willingness to keep watch with the stars. They walk slowly through the cloister, a lantern in hand, their feet brushing the stone in soft steps, whispering a psalm or a name or a prayer. They do not record time, they inhabit it. To the modern mind, this way of life may appear unproductive, even wasteful, but that is only because we have forgotten how to be still. We have forgotten how to see time as something given, not taken, as something to enter, not consume. The monk remembers. He remembers because his life is bound by bells, not alarms, by candles, not screens, by silence, not noise. He does not multitask. He does not hurry through a meal. He does not speak when words are not needed. And in that simplicity, he discovers something profound. That time, when lived well, becomes a kind of prayer. Not just the moments spent chanting psalms, or copying manuscripts, or digging potatoes, but every moment, waking, eating, kneeling, folding linens, scratching. Ink, even sleeping, becomes part of a seamless offering. In the monastery, the sacred is not separate. It is not confined to the chapel or to the altar. It infuses everything. The way a bench is cleaned, the way a fire is stoked, the way silence is kept. God is not summoned through theatrics. He is noticed in the pattern of the everyday. Even the architecture reflects this. The circular layout of the cloister is a kind of echo of eternity, of return, of wholeness. One walks and returns. One prays and repeats. One wakes and sleeps, and wakes again, not aimlessly, but within a rhythm that holds the soul like a cradle. Outside the monastery, years pass. Kings rise and fall. Wars burn and cool. New cities emerge. Empires stretch and then collapse under the weight of their own ambition. But the monastery endures, not because it is powerful, but because it is rooted. It changes only to remain the same. The parchment in the scriptorium will yellow, yes. The fruit trees will wither and be replanted. The monks will die, and others will take their place, but the rule will hold, the bells will ring, the psalms will rise, and so time continues, but in circles, not lines. This is time without time, time as rhythm, time as memory, time as offering. And perhaps this is what we forget in the world beyond the monastery gates, that life is not always meant to be chased, that silence is not emptiness, that repetition is not monotony, but meaning, that the soul, like the garden, grows not in bursts, but in seasons. The monastery reminds us, it reminds us that rest is holy, that slowness is not failure, that devotion is not a feeling, but a shape, one shaped day by day, hour by hour. Through the smallest of acts done with care, the bell will ring again soon, before the stars have fully faded, before the world has begun to stir, and the cycle will begin again. Matins, lauds, prime, but for now the monastery sleeps. Its stones hold the breath of centuries. Its air is thick with stillness. Its rhythm continues, not loudly, not proudly, but faithfully. And in that quiet repetition, in that gentle return, something eternal is remembered.